So I did a random Wikipedia search for Disciple and found that the band had released a new album. Now, I swore after Oh God Save Us and Horseshoes and Hand Grenades that I was not going to make another blind Disciple purchase. Well, the MP3s were only $5 on Amazon, and I did it. Now, Disciple is a band that's been around for a long time, since the late 90s, and I've always found this band to be kind of interesting in that they had a consistent lineup going from their first album, What Was I Thinking, through Scars Remain. And since then, it's kind of been a revolving door of musicians. Now, I don't know why all these things have happened. I don't know if the lead singer is just a dick to work with, or if he just gets people that don't work out, or what the case may be, but it does seem a little funny to me. And ever since the original group split, I have to admit, the quality in the music this band has had has really suffered. I thought Southern Hospitality was actually really good, but they still had the drummer and one of the guitar players was still in studio working with them. And that album I still found to be quite good, but with Horseshoes and Hand Grenades and Oh God Save Us, they just really suffered and really lacked direction, in my opinion. Now, I have to say, even as I made this purchase, I went into it with certain expectations. Pretty much the same expectations I went into when I first heard about this band from a church going person back in '07. However, at the time, the music they had really changed that once I finally actually heard them. And we kind of had the same thing happen here. I expected another album like the past two albums, which were very ballad heavy. And it's not that I mind a ballad here or there. I think Disciple has some standout ballads. No End at All, Whatever Reason, Mercy, and One More Time, all four being very, very solid ballads that I really, really enjoy. But I have to admit, a lot of their other ballads just feel like, hey, let's do a ballad, so they did a ballad. But those four really stand out for me. So when they released two albums in a row that were predominantly ballads, I kind of went into this expecting another one of those albums. And I have to say that fortunately, that was not the case here. I have to say, I think fans of the band will generally be pleased with this album. I say that a lot, but that's because bands really don't stray too far from their signature style these days. And they don't here. However, what you're going to get on this album is kind of a lesser version of Disciple and Scars Remain, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I really don't expect this revolving door of musicians mixed with the lead singer to ever top anything they did with the original lineup. And yes, I know that the bass player on some of the last few albums before the split was not in the original lineup, but he only came in to replace the singer who wanted to stop playing bass. So for me, I still say original lineup throughout all those. And I think this is a very good change. There are only three ballads on this album, and while none of them have really caught my attention a whole lot, although Unbroken did kind of the last time I just listened to this album. Yeah, I literally woke up, went to the bathroom, listened to this album, and now I'm recording this. So hopefully it comes out okay. But yeah, Unbroken did kind of do a little something for me the last time I heard it. So there's hope for that yet. I've only heard this album a few times. But I really think that only having three ballads out of 12 tracks is definitely a very good thing. That is much more what I think the percentage should be for this band. Because while I don't really think that a lot of the ballads on the previous two albums, which may seem like I absolutely hate, and the last one, no, I don't absolutely hate any of those two albums. A lot of those ballads would be easier to stomach if there were only a few of them. And this album, only having three, definitely makes that a lot easier to deal with. Because they're not necessarily bad songs. Like I said, one of them has started to grow on me. It's just, I can't take too many Disciple ballads. And fortunately, on this album, we don't get too many of them, just three. So yeah, this album definitely rocks out a little more, as the rest of the songs are, fairly rocking for this band. The songwriting is also very consistent, which I guess can be expected. This band is all about the hooks. It's a made for radio alternative rock band. At least they've been for the last like 10 years or so. They were a little more interesting in the first four albums. So the songwriting is very consistent. It's solid. If they're not offering anything new to the table, they're not bringing anything you haven't heard before, but I feel like the songwriting is still very consistent. You will find that the Jesus lyrics were turned up a bit from the past like decade of Disciple albums. So that's slight reminiscent of the first four albums, but I don't mind. I feel like if bands can sing about the devil and other deities, then really singing about God or Jesus really shouldn't be that frowned upon. The songs on this album that really stand out for me are the ones at the very beginning of the album, which I guess is kind of typical. I find Attack to be my favorite song so far. It's very catchy, very anthemic. Really just gets my toes tapping every time I hear it, which may be kind of silly, but that's what it is. I really enjoy that song. I think Radical also being a very cool track. Dead Militia and Scarlet also being quite cool as well, which I just listed the first four tracks. But hey, I just said the beginning is what I really get into. And yeah, Kamikaze being another song from later on in the album that I really enjoyed. We get a couple of songs which have a background vocalist that I'm not sure if that's a guy from Pillar or not, but it sounds like him. So yeah, my thoughts are going to be a bit jumbled from here on out. I apologize, but I did just wake up not long ago. Now, something I did notice that I don't care for is the sound of the cymbals in quite a few of the tracks. I don't know if this is just from the MP3 version or if it's on the actual CD as well, but I don't really. Some of the cymbals on here on the drums just sound off. I don't know if that was intentional or what was meant by that, but I don't really care for that. And um, Dead Militia being the first song I really kind of noticed that in. So I don't think it was necessarily in every song. So if you're a fan of the band, I think you'll enjoy this album. It does harken back to the self-titled and Scars Remain albums. I think it's a very consistent album. It's nothing you haven't heard before. Disciple being a made-for-radio alternative rock band, Christian rock band, whatever. But overall, I like it. I think it's, for what it is, I think it's pretty solid. I'm going to give this a 75 out of 100. I did not expect much going into this album, and it actually is something that I reasonably enjoy.